The journey of vengeance. A mad girl confronts her father's killer in the dead of night is a gripping tale of rage, loss, and retribution. Ha Ngân, a young woman plagued by a rage disorder since childhood, is haunted by her father's brutal murder in a staged hit-and-run. Driven by grief and a thirst for justice, she transforms from a reclusive outcast into a relentless hunter. Navigating a web of clues, she uncovers a chilling connection to a serial killer case. With cunning and raw determination, Ngân faces her father's killer in a heart-pounding showdown, risking everything to honor his memory. Dear listeners, please lend your ears to the story that follows. I suffer from a rage disorder. At the age of 12, I was sent to a juvenile reformatory. Everyone called me a lunatic. But my father never criticized me.
He said, "My girl, I'm not afraid of your madness."
A little madness means no one will dare to bully you. But later, my father left me too. My name is Hà Ngân, and I carry a sickness in my heart. Back in 8th grade, there was a boy with a face full of acne who constantly mocked me for not having a mother. He would pull my hair and flip my skirt after school. One day, he tore up a photo of my mother that I kept in my pencil case. That day, I heard a snap in my mind like a string breaking. Seeing that ugly boy smirk triumphantly, I punched him, breaking his nose. Then, in front of his horrified eyes, I grabbed a chair and smashed it over his head. He screamed and fell. I straddled him, took a ballpoint pen from my pencil case, and stabbed it repeatedly into his right arm, the arm that had destroyed my mother's photo. As he wailed, I began to laugh, louder and louder. Most of the classmates present were so terrified they cried. It wasn't until the teacher rushed in and pulled me off that it stopped. That year I turned 14. I was taken from the local police station to a provincial juvenile reformatory. 2 months later, diagnosed with severe rage disorder, I was transferred to a psychiatric hospital. A year later, I was discharged, but only under supervision. From then on, wherever my father went for business, I followed. I locked myself in a small bedroom, studying, watching movies, practicing yoga to stay calm, never stepping into the light. Everyone who knew about my condition understood how dangerous I could be. Even I feared myself when the madness took over, so I refused to go outside. But my father wasn't afraid. He never saw me as a burden. Even though that boy was the son of an official, and his family unleashed their vengeance on my father's business, my father never saw me as an uncontrollable lunatic. To him, I was still his little princess, not yet grown. Since I wouldn't go out, every time we moved, he prepared a large house, decorated in the style I loved, so I wouldn't feel like the house was my prison. Later, my father's company went bankrupt. We fled to a small mountainous county in the northwest. The money we had left was only enough to rent a rundown house with 1 living room and 1 bedroom. He slept in the living room, leaving the bedroom for me. Warm blankets, second-hand books, the only smartphone in the house, all the best things were for me. That night, through the door, I asked him if he would have lived a better life if he didn't have to protect a crazy daughter like me. "You silly girl!" His gentle laughter rang out in the cold winter night. He said I was so crazy that everyone feared me. If anyone tried to get him drunk, he'd just say he'd unleash me to bite them. He joked without limits, but I sobbed uncontrollably. Because I heard his final words, "So you're the one protecting me." Those words completely changed my life, a life like that of a caged beast. 2 months later, it was my 19th birthday. That evening, I cleaned the house spotless, cooked 2 bowls of noodle soup, prepared pickled vegetables from the night before, and waited for my father to return. I had prepared something to say, a surprise gift for him. I wanted to tell him I had grown up and was ready to go out and work. I decided I wouldn't lock myself behind a door anymore. With the calmest demeanor, I would return to human society. I hoped he would believe I wouldn't go mad again. It would be the greatest birthday gift I could give him. I thought this decision would smooth the wrinkles on his forehead and bring some light to our family. But I didn't wait for my father. A police officer knocked on our door. He told me through the door that my father had been in a car accident. Severely injured, he didn't make it. The driver fled the scene. The last time I saw my father was at the crematorium. A young officer named Lam handed me an item. An old laptop. Lam said it was the most valuable thing on my father's body. His body was almost completely broken. When they found him, he was lying face down, his body and arms tightly clutching the laptop beneath him. Lam said with regret, "We suspected there might be evidence inside, but when we checked, it was just a new laptop." But I knew. Recently, I had mentioned wanting to write articles online to earn some money. And my father had said he was preparing 2 birthday gifts for me. So this laptop was one of them. That was my 19th birthday. After the midnight bell, I collapsed on the crematorium steps, crying until I had no tears left. I realized I would never know what the other gift was. But that wasn't the worst part. When I was exhausted from crying, I recalled the word Lam used. Evidence. If it was just a hit-and-run accident, why would there be evidence in the laptop? Unless, according to the police's judgment, this could be a murder. I snapped my head up and pressed Lam. "So how exactly did my father die?" Lam hesitated for a moment before handing me the autopsy report. He confirmed it was true. The actions of the hit-and-run driver were indeed unusual. Lam's next words hit me like the shock that ugly boy in 8th grade had caused, nearly shattering my rationality. According to him, the first time my father was hit, he was thrown over 10 meters. The autopsy report showed he was still breathing at that point. But based on the scene's evidence, the vehicle didn't slow down after hitting him. Instead, it ran over his body. At that point, it could still be attributed to a tired or drunk driver who didn't realize they'd hit someone. But it didn't end there. After running over my father's body, the vehicle stopped. Then it reversed and ran over him again. I couldn't imagine my father's despair at that moment. A middle-aged man, clutching a birthday gift for his daughter, desperately hoping for a chance to deliver it to her. Hearing this, my whole body trembled. I used my last shred of strength to restrain myself, to keep from losing control. Sweat drenched my body before I finally calmed down, gritting my teeth to ask, "When will the killer be caught?" "We haven't identified them yet." "But we won't give up," Lam sighed, trying to comfort me. I nodded slowly. Finally, I said calmly, "Please find the killer quickly, or I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself and might do something irrational." With that, I turned and walked away. After 2 steps, Lam suddenly spoke behind me. "Ha, Ngan, we couldn't contact you before, so we checked your family records." I stopped but didn't turn around, saying, "And?" "I saw your record of attempted murder." He spoke deliberately, word by word. When you can't control yourself, it's pathological, isn't it? In the village courtyard, only the sound of the wind remained. After a few seconds, I turned back. For the first time that day, I smiled. Catch the killer quickly. It's better for everyone. When I left the crematorium, it was 1 in the morning. Under the starry night sky, only one thought filled my mind. I wanted the killer to know that not turning themselves in was the biggest mistake of their life. Because of this, I started leaving the house. I went to the accident scene, collecting tire tracks. But it had rained that day, and the muddy road erased too many clues. I began visiting households along the road, searching for potential witnesses. I drew all the clues I gathered on the wall, trying to uncover the truth. I once suspected the parents of that 8th grade boy. I called Lam to discuss it, but 3 days later he responded definitively. He said he'd contacted the local police, and aside from clear alibis, all he got were curses from that couple directed at the authorities. I admitted that, since we'd fled to this mountainous region and almost no one knew our whereabouts, it couldn't be them. My hatred had clouded my judgment. But I hated myself, hated how useless I was. Even though I'd stayed in my bedroom absorbing knowledge and reading detective novels, when it came to a real case, especially an ordinary hit-and-run, it was far harder than I'd imagined. The most ordinary, yet the most difficult. So I came up with a plan. At the time, a case was shaking the entire province. 4 women had gone missing in the surrounding county, with no trace of them alive or dead, classified as a vicious serial murder case. After learning about these cases, I posted about my father's case on the country's most famous detective forum. But I changed my father's gender. In the post, my father became a new female victim.
Yes.
I fabricated my father's hit and run as part of the serial murder case. I used the influence of the serial killings to draw attention to my father's case, attracting the focus of passionate detective enthusiasts. Was this case part of the serial murders or a copycat killing? Since my father's case differed from the previous ones, the forum erupted in discussion. Though some serious deductive minds engaged, most people questioned the authenticity of the case. My post faced accusations and curses, and it began to lose traction. Until one late night, when I refreshed the post, I saw a comment from someone with the ID Hun Fong. I looked at all the scene photos the poster collected, compared the collection time to the incident time, and only one tire track matches the time frame of the crime. The vehicle in the accident is likely a 4.2-meter box truck. My hands trembled on the screen. Like grasping a lifeline, I kept replying to Hun Fong, asking how he knew. This person was arrogant. He said he was a car enthusiast. He chose the name Hun Fong because he loved racing and had never been caught. 2 wheels, 4 wheels, 6 wheels, he knew them all. He wouldn't make a mistake. But identifying the vehicle type wasn't enough. The police likely already had this clue. Moreover, first, the victims in the serial killings disappeared at different locations, proving the killer moved around the county without a pattern, unlikely to pass the same road twice. Second, in the previous cases, the killer was meticulous, leaving no bodies. The killer was either extremely strong or worked in a group, leaving victims no chance to resist. But this time, a body was left behind, resembling a simple accident. Han Fong's reply came at 3 in the morning. He probably went to sleep, as there was no more activity. I understood his implication. He was subtly suggesting my post was fake. But it didn't matter. At least I'd taken the first step. I resorted to a foolish method. By day, I continued visiting households, hoping to obtain footage from shops along the road. By night, I stood on that road, waiting for every 4.2-meter box truck to pass. Then, pretending to be injured, I'd get on the truck, observe the driver's behavior, and determine if they were the killer. I gave myself a year. As long as the killer was local, as long as they still drove on that road, I would meet them. I would. They used the most ordinary method to kill my father. I would use the most rigid method to make them take the bait. To do this, I prepared extensively. I trained my stamina relentlessly, hid a dagger in my sleeve, taped a blade behind my pants, concealed a small spray bottle at my thigh, and tucked sedatives in my undergarments. I turned myself into a hunter, ready 24 hours a day. But at the time, I didn't know this decision would lead me into a terrifying situation. It was a cold night, exactly midnight. I waited for a box truck with an unfamiliar license plate. A 4.2-meter box truck, old and worn, with dim headlights. I stood in the middle of the road, waving frantically. When the headlights blinded me, I heard the engine stop. A middle-aged man with a square face lowered the window, cigarette in mouth, and asked, "What are you doing, little girl?" I squinted, pointed at my foot, and shouted, "My leg's injured, uncle. Can you give me a ride?" The man looked around, saw the deserted road, and nodded, "Get in." I thanked him profusely, limping as I climbed into the truck. Inside, it was messy, reeking of cigarette smoke. I observed the man over 30, burly, with muscular shoulders, clearly built from heavy labor. Looking up, I noticed his large, round eyes watching me. Our eyes met, and I instinctively shrank back. "Let's go, little girl." The man started the truck, occasionally chatting with me. I said I was 20, on break, heading home to the next county. I'd been out exploring but sprained my ankle. The road was desolate, and I couldn't get a ride. The man clearly wasn't interested in my story. only occasionally giving me suggestive looks. I'd seen that look on 3 other drivers, but none were as blatant as him. Suddenly I shivered. The man placed his hand on my thigh. At the same time he turned, grinning. "How about we have some fun?" I lowered my eyes, stunned. On his ring finger was my father's wedding ring. A platinum ring with a faint diamond band, understated and elegant, completely out of place on this man. I regained my composure and smiled at him. "How about we stop the truck?" I said. His face lit up with glee. He slammed on the brakes, pulling over to the side. At the same time, he tapped twice on the cargo area behind, as if signaling something. This was a desolate road, no one around. The asphalt was cracked, flanked by endless fields of rice. Beyond, only infinite darkness. "Come here." After stopping, the man lunged at me like a lustful monkey, biting my neck. It hurt and made me nauseous, but I wrapped my arms around his waist. Then, softly, I asked, "On the night of September 10th, you ran over and killed someone, didn't you?" Suddenly, the man froze, slowly raising his head. I moved the hand around his waist to his head, holding it so he faced me. He frowned. "What?" I said, "A man. Thin, tall, fair-skinned. You might not have seen clearly right on the road where I got in." The man shook his head slowly. "I don't understand." I said, "I'm his daughter."
He said, "So what?" I said, "Can you give me back his ring?"
His pupils contracted instantly. I felt his muscles tense. I maintained my position. One hand around his back, holding his head, facing me. The other around his waist. In that hand, the dagger hidden in my sleeve. I suddenly thrust. I felt the blade pierce his back, watching his eyes slowly fade. When the man collapsed onto me, I felt everything was over. About 30 seconds passed. In that time, memories flashed through my mind, and I felt that my hateful, debt-ridden life had finally returned to calm, like clouds and wind. I had thought of suicide. But looking at the endless road, I thought I should first go to my father's grave and tell him his daughter had done it. So I gritted my teeth, hefted the man's heavy body, opened the door, planning to put it in the cargo area and drive to my father's cemetery. But when I opened the cargo area, I froze.
Inside were stacked cages.
In them, dogs of all sizes, barking wildly. Then, I saw the most horrifying sight of my life. From the back of the cargo area, 2 skinless hands reached out, moving a cage. A man, like a monster, emerged from behind it. He wore a dark green military coat, but his face was entirely burned. No hair, no eyebrows, ears reduced to holes, lips so thin they were scorched away, his face pitted and uneven. His round eyes stared at me. For the first time in years, I was terrified. So scared my hair stood on end. I couldn't even tell if he was human or monster. Looking at the dogs in the cages, a horrifying thought struck me. The serial murders, the bot is completely erased. I recalled Hung Fong's words that the serial killer might be a group. So, could the person who ran over my father be the serial killer? In that moment, my mind raced, and I quickly said, "Big brother, the driver's injured." He told me to find you for help. What? The burned man was stunned, muttering. He immediately covered his face with a black cloth. Then he moved the dog cages blocking the cargo area and stepped out. At the same time, he turned and hissed from his throat. All the dogs instantly shut up, tails tucked, whimpering in fear. Only then did he take the driver's body from my back. In that moment, I saw his hole-like eyes flash with ferocity. I knew he saw the wound. But I was waiting for this moment of shock. Behind him, I raised the dagger high, thrusting it toward him. But at the moment of death, the burned man reacted, leaping back. Then he assumed a stance I'd never seen.
He crouched, legs spread, arms circled, like a black bear with glowing eyes standing in the dark.
What was this man? I stared at him, dagger in hand, trembling uncontrollably. It was a primal fear. I kept telling myself, calm down, calm down. But the calmer I tried to be, the more I shook. Until the burned man charged, completely shattering my defenses. His speed was too fast, his angle too precise, like a beast. A single blow to my neck. My body went limp, collapsing. My last glimpse was a beam of light. In the distance, a police car. Perhaps the police car brought a final sense of safety. In my days, I dreamt of my father. He truly spoiled me. Even after what happened in 8th grade, he never changed toward me. When I returned from the psychiatric hospital, he made me a promise. Whatever I wanted to do, I could. Whatever books I wanted to read, whatever hobbies I wanted to pursue, no matter how expensive, he'd buy them for me. Whatever food I craved, he'd practice the recipe until he mastered it before cooking it for me. Most of all, he encouraged me to step out from the bedroom, the living room, the house. Learn to reconcile with yourself, he taught me.
He said again, don't be afraid.
Go out for a walk. The thing you fear most isn't as scary as you think. He said, look at me. People with depression feel emotions more keenly. Where you suffer, you'll be stronger. So what about you?
He said again, you know what?
Sometimes you don't need to always stay calm. He said so much but couldn't heal himself. 2 years ago, as his company neared bankruptcy, he developed depression. Depression, a disease where you can't feel joy. I saw him cut his wrists. I knew better than anyone how much he suffered. So we made a pact. I wanted to end our lives together, to end our family's story. On my 19th birthday, I tried to save him. I deluded myself that my decision to work would stop him from wanting to die. But it was too late. I couldn't save him, nor could I leave with him. It was the first time he broke a promise to me. He was killed by 2 bastards breaking his promise to me. When I woke, the barking of dogs roused me. Gradually opening my eyes, I found my hands and feet tightly bound. The cargo area reeked of dog stench. My phone, dagger, spray bottle. Gone, discarded by the burned man. Enduring the pain in my neck, I looked up amid the barking and saw the man I'd killed leaning against the opposite side, his body already turning purple. I realized something, struggling to crawl toward him. At the same time, my hand reached behind my back. There, the 2 blades I'd hidden. As I reached the body, a blade slipped into my hand, cutting the ropes at my wrists. My hands ached unbearably, but I finally freed myself. I immediately searched the body, finding a phone in its pocket. I grabbed it, dialed emergency services, and soon connected to a police officer. I'm in the serial killer's truck. In the shaking cargo area, I whispered urgently, they're dog traffickers. There are lots of dogs in here. It's a 4.2-meter green box truck. Last 2 digits of the license plate are 32. I was kidnapped on Tanaching Highway, heading south about
10 minutes.
I noticed the truck slowing and hurriedly said, it's stopping. Come save me. The officer calmly replied, I've estimated your approximate location. Fastest? 30 minutes. Hold on. As he spoke, the truck stopped completely. I hung up, hiding the phone under the body's feet. Then, I hid my hands behind my back. The cargo door opened behind the burned man. Still wrapped tightly, he moved the dog cages, then stepped into the cargo area. But he stopped. Show me your hands, he said. I leaned against the cargo wall, trembling, feigning panic. You can kill, but you're afraid of me? The burned man, eyes visible through the black cloth, let out a cold laugh. Show me your hands. Reluctantly, I extended them. My eyes glanced at the dagger beside the body I'd used. The burned man noticed it, understood, and casually grabbed a rope from a dog cage, tying my hands again. Then he carried me off the truck. It was an abandoned underground garage. He carried me, step by step, up the stairs. Occasionally, I heard his uncontrollable coughs. When we reached a room, he set me down. I looked around. It was a rough room, all windows sealed with wood, not a sliver of light entering. Only an old ventilation fan, connected to a plastic pipe, allowed air in. Under dim light, there were shelves. When I saw what was on them, I nearly vomited. On the shelves were jars. Inside, human organs. Not far off, the burned man removed his military coat, revealing a severely burned body. He turned, and on an old wooden table were tools. Knives, tweezers, a hammer. Turning back, I saw the tool in his hand, and cold sweat soaked my back. A surgical knife. He approached, sliding the knife across my neck, his round eyes staring at the bite mark there. He shook his head. Lust is a blade. I told him he'd ruin everything. Eat it, isn't that better? After he said this, I remembered I'd killed someone. And the man before me was still my father's killer. Monster or not, he was my father's killer. I had no reason to fear him. Moreover, behind my back, I held a blade, nearly cutting through the rope. And, in my undergarments, 3 pills. They were for my rage disorder, calming me effectively for the first 10 minutes, but causing fatigue as a side effect. If I took them, I could hold out for 10 minutes. But that was still 10 minutes short of the police's arrival. As I organized my thoughts, the burned man leaned close to my face.
He said, "You know what? I feigned calm. What?"
The life of a loved one must be avenged by your own hands. With that, he said no more, swinging the surgical knife toward my neck. In that instant, a surge of strength rose from my feet. I leaped aside. My hands were freed at that moment. Without thinking, I pressed the blade, cutting the rope at my ankles. But I only managed a little. Instead, the burned man, stunned, didn't give me time to react and charged again. My nerves were on edge. My hand reached to my thigh, grabbing the hidden spray bottle. Gritting my teeth, I sprayed him. Perhaps because he lacked protective skin, his reaction was stronger than I expected, screaming violently. Seizing the moment, I sped up, cutting the rope at my ankles. 3 seconds, 5 seconds, life and death in every blink. Boom! With a dull thud, the rope and my feet finally broke. My heart raced to its limit, my head pounding. I reached into my chest, pulled out the 3 pills, and threw them into my mouth. The familiar effect kicked in quickly, suppressing my unease. The burned man, eyes red, stopped screaming and advanced, staring at me. Calm down, calm down. I took a deep breath, telling myself, 20 minutes, hold on. The battle had just begun. The burned man roared, charging. Perhaps clearer-headed, I saw his movements for the first time. Stepping back with my left foot, I dodged his punch. Before I could rejoice, I swung my fist, aiming for his ribs. But his reaction was too fast. He dodged my punch. Not just this time, but the next and the one after. Instead, his fists and feet always hit me. Time passed. I felt the pill's effect fading. I couldn't see his movements anymore. Maybe the pills wore off, maybe my eyes were swollen from hits, maybe the delayed pain, maybe a girl facing a man living on the edge of a blade, always faced an insurmountable gap. Helplessness spread. I don't know how long, 5 minutes, 10. I could only lean against the wall, gasping. In my blurry vision, the burned man, almost unharmed, bent to pick up a cleaver from the floor. He walked toward me. At the moment closest to death, I heard a voice. My father's voice. Again, you know what? Sometimes you don't need to always stay calm. The burned man's cleaver swung down. Whoosh! My hair flew. The cleaver struck less than 5 centimeters from my head, embedding into the wooden window cover. A light breeze blew through the gap. The burned man stepped back, showing a rare loss of control, followed by a grotesque smile. I don't believe you're that lucky next time. Before he finished, I began to laugh. From a soft chuckle to a wild, echoing laugh in the filthy room. I stood, back straight. Through the hair over my forehead, I stared at him, saying, "It wasn't luck. I did it on purpose." I unleashed my suppressed rage. The madness I'd buried for 8 years. A power not mine, yet deeply familiar, erupted in every fiber of my body. This energy told me my next punch would hit that bastard. And it did. Then the second, the third. The burned man retreated for the first time. I seized the chance, grabbing a long-handled hammer from the wooden table. But when I looked at him, my vision darkened. The burned man had turned off the light. His voice echoed through the room. Ever heard of a beast? Beasts have instincts. Dogs, cats, wolves, grizzly bears. Survival, hunting, eating humans. Have you ever lived by instinct? You haven't because you weren't burned like me. I can see you, girl. In the dark, I couldn't see him. Every few seconds, a part of my body was slashed. Shallow, bleeding heavily, but not fatal. I knew he was torturing me. I also knew 30 minutes was still far off. I began swinging wildly, like a desperate lunatic making futile moves, though this only made him laugh louder in the dark. I could only hear my blood dripping onto the floor. Everything blurred. Until a sound stopped him, pulling me back to reality. Police sirens.
10 minutes early.
Look at me. People with depression feel emotions more keenly. Where you suffer, you'll be stronger. So what about you? So what about him? When the siren sounded, his cleaver was at my neck, asking if I'd called the police. I touched his skin. Uneven, but thin like a fragile membrane. Why did he have so-called beast instincts? Such fast reactions. Could see me in the dark? All mysteries connected when I touched his skin. I stopped swinging the heavy hammer. Instead, I blew gently. Like a conditioned reflex, the burned man leaped away. Where you suffer, you'll be stronger. I know your secret, I said. It's the wind. I finally understood. The burned man wasn't a beast, nor did he have instincts. The instinct he used to torture me was also his unerasable scar. I recalled reading about it. Some people are extremely sensitive to wind. Even the slightest breeze is noticed. Often, those with extensive burns, due to weakened immune systems, are allergic to cold air or other reasons. In short, their skin reacts to air exposure. The burned man turned years of pain into his ability. He sensed every breath I made when I moved. In the dark, after a brief silence, he only said, "No more games." He charged at me. I retreated, knowing that the more I moved, the clearer my position and actions were to him. Until I was cornered against the window. My back pressed against the wooden cover, my hand groping, touching the cleaver he'd embedded. Again, don't be afraid. Go out for a walk. The thing you fear most isn't as scary as you think. Instantly, I remembered everything. In the cargo area, he was wrapped tightly. In the underground garage, he coughed for no reason. The cleaver in the wood, letting in a breeze, made him retreat. Wind was his weapon and his weakness. I felt him swing his knife. At the same time, I raised the hammer. Immediately, a sharp pain shot through my right side, proof he truly meant to kill. But I smiled. I said, "Don't be afraid. Go out for a walk." With the hammer, I smashed the wooden window cover. Wind rushed in. The cold northwest wind, sharp as a blade, roared through the room. The burned man screamed, his footsteps fleeing to another room. I ignored him. I smashed the wood, letting moonlight and wind pour in. In the cold wind, I forced myself to whistle casually, walking toward the door. I turned on the light and locked the door. "Hey, little monster, don't think about running." I shouted toward the bedroom. Then, feeling it wasn't right, I unlocked and flung the door open. The wind grew stronger. "That's better," I whispered. "You can't escape." A wall of wind filled the living room, tangling my black hair. I spat out the hair blown into my mouth, listening to his pained screams from the bedroom. Until the cold wind carried the sound of police sirens closer. I entered the bedroom. There, the burned man curled in a corner, covered in red welts, parts of his skin blackened, scratched, bloody. I stepped past, ignoring him. I smashed the bedroom's wooden covers. Finally, I gently lifted the blanket off him with the tip of my knife. I caught you. The burned man looked up, eyes full of fear.
He rasped, "Spare me, please."
I'll turn myself in. I shook my head. He screamed in disbelief. You'll get the death penalty. I shook my head again. It doesn't matter. Self-defense or murder, it's fine. Think about that man. The man you ran over? He was my father. I swore to make you understand that not turning yourself in was your greatest regret. Instantly, his eyes glazed over. That man, gradually, a complex expression crossed his face. I get it. The guy who came to buy a dog, right? Suddenly, I felt struck by lightning, vaguely realizing something. Suppressing the shock, I gritted my teeth and asked, what did he buy a dog for? The burned man's face showed anger. Damn it. Why else? To buy a dog for his daughter. My heart sank, overwhelmed by unbearable sorrow. I suppressed the pain, slapped him hard, and said word by word, explain clearly. Why buy a dog? Humiliation and weakness flashed across his face. For the dog to protect his daughter, what else? Time rewound to that night. Dad, if you didn't have to protect a crazy daughter like me, would you live better? You silly girl. You're so crazy, everyone's afraid of you. If anyone tries to get me drunk, I just say I'll unleash you to bite them. So, you're the one protecting me. Through the door, I sobbed silently. Stop talking nonsense. And get a dog.
Why?
To take you outside. You have to walk it. I'm lazy, don't bother. When it grows up, it'll protect you. Protect me. You listen to me. The burned man told me my father wanted to buy a dog, somehow stumbling upon their shabby dog shop. It was a front, never expecting a customer. Moreover, my father keenly sensed the truth. He discovered the burned man and his brother were feeding human flesh to dogs to dispose of bodies. My father handled it delicately, saying a few words before leaving, but he couldn't outsmart the burned man's sharper instincts. They chased, my father ran, and died under that truck. That old man was twisted, smugly saying before he died that after he was gone, someone would hunt us forever. He even recalled my father's words. My father told them, my death is fine. You're the bait to keep her going. Promise me, run as far as you can. She's formidable. So in the end, my father gave up our suicide pact. The dog he didn't get to give me was his second gift, the armor he wanted to protect me with. Right? Even if he couldn't bring home a healthy dog, he still left me a gift. A gift of vengeance forged with his life. This gift gave me every reason to keep living. Because he died unjustly. Because his daughter, a mad, lonely, stubborn, naive girl, would chase the killers to the ends of the earth, even until she was old, to bring them to justice. When the burned man finished, I realized tears were streaming down my face. Unceasing. Washing away dirt and blood. I finally understood the cause of my father's death. An unfinished birthday celebration, a bloody night full of mistakes. But, Dad, your daughter did it. Thank you for a birthday gift full of trials. Dawn arrived, sunlight flooding the rough room, reflecting off the blade in a golden gleam. Police sirens sounded downstairs. I looked at the dying burned man. His eyes shone with the joy of being saved. I bent down, saying, thank you for telling me this. His eyes lit up with greater joy, weakly saying, it's okay. It's okay. I continued, especially that line. The life of a loved one must be avenged by your own hands. Instantly, terror filled his face. Then, in disbelief, he looked at his chest. There, my knife was embedded. I didn't expect the first person to rush in would be Lum. He looked at the room's situation with a complex expression, then helped me into the police car, speeding to the hospital. In the car, it was just us. Weakly, I mumbled, Officer Lamb, it was self-defense. I won't go to jail, right? Lamb was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, were you really kidnapped by them? I smiled, shaking my head. If not, then what? Lamb glanced at me through the rearview mirror. Are you sure you didn't seek them out? Like, to avenge your father? Even if I did, how would I know they were the killers? Am I that crazy? I replied, annoyed, my voice too loud, aggravating my wounds, making me groan. Unexpectedly, Lamb continued, it's just us here, no recording. Don't worry, I glared, finally saying, stop guessing. The wind howled along the road. When the police car stopped at the hospital, and I was lifted onto a stretcher, Lamb gently touched my arm. I looked at him, puzzled. He walked beside the stretcher, lit a cigarette, and suddenly asked awkwardly, know what car a guy who loves racing and never gets caught drives? I froze, recalling the arrogant guy from the detective forum over a month ago. Following Lamb's gaze, I saw a car nearby. A police car. So he was Han Fong. I swallowed, voice strained. Officer Lamb? I thought saying that would make you give up investigating. I didn't expect it to make you dive in headfirst. Sensing the guilt in Lam's voice, I quickly said, so my condition is your fault, right? You're responsible, right? You even leaked police info. I know. Lamb stood, looking at me, waving, stepping into the dawn. Self-defense, I'll fight for you. A few days later, while my wounds were still healing, news came that my actions were deemed self-defense. However, the media only published a brief report about a smart female victim escaping to protect my privacy. About a month later, I was discharged. Lamb picked me up. Not in his police uniform, he drove his personal car, taking me home. On the way, he asked about my plans. I thought for a moment and said, to live well. What about that illness? How's it going? Lamb asked calmly. I was silent for a bit, then told him. My father once gave me an example.
He said, Ingan, in this world, many people are allergic to many things.
Mangoes, wheat, beer, even air. They spend their lives reconciling with these fated enemies, to live in harmony. You must remember to try to fit in. People allergic to pollen aren't stopped from living among flowers. Lamb listened, reflected, and said, that's good. We didn't speak further, quietly listening to the song playing in the car. It was White Dove by Turn Thursday Ha. Fly, fly in the sky. Blow hard, merciless wind. I'm not afraid, nor do I need to be timid. On this wandering path, I walk alone. It's the pride, the freedom of sunlight. White clouds pass beneath my feet. A withered body, a weary face. Flapping wings, never looking back. Though bearing eternal wounds, at least I still have freedom. Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel to not miss the next exciting stories.